The alarm screamed through the bridge of the Earthship Indomitable. Captain Hyunwoo sat up in his chair and looked at the main screen. Red lights flashed everywhere. Something was wrong in space. "What do we have?" Hyunwoo asked his crew. "Distress. Signal, Captain," said Communications Officer Woo Jin. His fingers moved fast over his controls. "It's coming from the Zirian system. The signal is weak but clear." Hyunwoo frowned. The Zirian system was far from any human space routes. No Earth ships should be there. "Can you clean up the signal?" Woo Jin worked for a few minutes. Then alien voices filled the bridge. The words were strange, but the translation computer worked quickly. "This is Captain Veltar of the Volani trading ship Gentle Current. We are under attack. The Krex Empire found us. Our engines are dead. Our weapons are gone. Please, anyone who can hear this, we need help. We have women and children on board." The bridge went quiet. Everyone knew about the Krex Empire. They were killers who took over worlds and enslaved alien races. No one fought the Krex and won. Most ships ran away when they saw Krex ships coming. "How far to their position?" Hyunwoo asked. Navigator Kyung-ho checked his instruments. 12 hours at full speed, Captain. "But sir, we're just one ship." The message said Krex Empire. That means lots of ships with big guns. "Any other ships close enough to help?" "No, sir. The nearest Earth fleet is 4 days away. The nearest alien ships belong to races that won't fight the Krex." Hyunwoo stood up and walked to the big window that showed space. Stars looked back at him, cold and distant. Somewhere out there, innocent, people were dying while killers destroyed their ship. "Sir?" Kyung-ho said quietly. "What are your orders?" Every person on the bridge knew what the smart choice was. Run away. Call for help. Let someone else deal with it. The Krex had ships that could blow up planets. They had weapons that could cut through any armor. They had never lost a real fight. But Hyunwoo thought about the voice in the message, the fear, the mention of children. "Set course for Zarian system. Maximum speed." "Sir," said Chief Medical Officer Dai-yoon from her station. "One ship against the Krex Empire." "One ship is what they have," Hyunwoo said. "Woo Jin, send a message back to the Volani ship. Tell them help is coming." "What should I tell them about how many ships we're bringing?" Woo Jin asked. "Tell them the truth. We're bringing one ship, but tell them it's a human ship. That might mean something to them." The Indomitable turned in space and jumped to faster than light speed. The stars outside became long white lines as the ship raced toward danger. 12 hours later, they dropped back to normal space near a small yellow star. The Zirian system spread out before them. Kyung-ho's instruments quickly found the Volani ship. "There," he said, pointing at the main screen. The Gentle Current drifted in space like a broken toy. Parts of the ship were missing. Black holes showed, where weapons had burned through the hull. Small pieces of metal floated around it like angry insects. "Life signs?" Hyunwoo asked. Da-eun worked at her medical sensors. "I'm reading about 50 Volani still alive. They're in the center of the ship where the hull is strongest. Any Krex ships?" "Negative," said weapons specialist Dong-min. "But there's debris from at least 3 Krex fighters. Looks like the Volani got some shots in before their weapons died." Hyunwoo smiled. "The Volani might look like peaceful traders, but they had some fight in them. Take us closer. Da-eun, get ready to receive wounded. Dong-min, keep our weapons ready. The Krex might come back." The Indomitable moved slowly toward the damaged alien ship. As they got closer, they could see how bad the damage was. The Volani ship looked like something had tried to tear it apart with giant claws. "Captain," Woo Jin said, "I'm getting a signal from the Volani ship." "Put it through." The voice that came through the speakers was weak and tired. "Unknown ship, this is Captain Veltar. Please identify yourself." "This is Captain Hyunwoo of the Earth Defense Force ship Indomitable. We received your distress call. We're here to help." Silence for a long moment, then, "Did you say Earth ship? Human ship?" "That's right. But you're just one ship. The Krex had dozens of fighters and 3 big warships. They'll come back when they detect you." Let us worry about that, Hyunwoo said. Right now we need to get your people to safety. Can you move your ship? No, engines are completely dead. Life support is failing. We have maybe 6 hours of air left. Then we'll take you aboard our ship. Prepare for emergency transport. Da-Yun and her medical team worked fast. They set up the cargo bay to receive the alien survivors. Within an hour they had brought all 50 Villani aboard the Indomitable. Hyunwoo met the aliens in the cargo bay. He had never seen Villani before. They were tall and thin, with blue-green skin and large dark eyes. They moved carefully in the Earthship's gravity like the weight was too much for them. Captain Veltar was an older Villani with scars on his arms and face. He looked at Hyunwoo with something like wonder. You really came, Veltar said. One ship answered our call for help. Of course we came, Hyunwoo said. You asked for help. But the Krex Empire, they have hundreds of ships. They've conquered 12 worlds in the last year. No one fights them anymore. We're not no one, Hyunwoo said simply. Veltar looked around the cargo bay. He saw human crew members working in conditions that would kill most aliens. The gravity was 3 times what Villani could normally handle. The air was thick with oxygen that would burn Villani lungs. The radiation from the ship's reactor would poison most alien races. How do you live in this? Veltar asked. This? Hyunwoo looked around. This is normal for us. Our home world is much worse. Worse than this? Much worse. Earth tries to kill everything that lives on it. The weather, the animals, the plants, even the air can be deadly. We learn to be tough, or we learn to die. Veltar stared at the human captain. And you chose to be tough. We chose to survive. And we chose to help others survive too. An alarm sounded through the ship. Dongmin's voice came over the speakers. Captain to the bridge. We have Krex ships coming in fast. Hyunwoo looked at Veltar. Get your people somewhere safe. This is about to get interesting. Captain Hyunwoo, Veltar said as the human turned to leave. Why did you come? Why risk your ship and your crew for aliens you've never met? Hyunwoo stopped and looked back. Because you asked for help. Where we come from, that's reason enough. He left the cargo bay and headed for the bridge. Outside, Krex warships were dropping out of faster-than-light speed, their weapons already charging for battle. The aliens had made one mistake. They thought, one human ship meant one easy target. They didn't understand that humans from Earth don't know how to give up. They were about to learn what that meant. Admiral So Young read Captain Hyunwoo's report 3 times. Each time the numbers looked worse. 50 Krex ships had attacked the Villani trading vessel. The Krex were building a big fleet in the Zarian system. Intelligence reports said they were planning to attack 3 more worlds. She looked up from her desk at the wall display. It showed the positions of all Earth Defense Force ships in this part of space. 12 ships total. 12 ships to fight 50 Krex vessels with more coming every day. Any sane military leader would call for reinforcements. Wait for the main fleet. Plan a careful attack with overwhelming force. Admiral So Young had been called many things in her career, but sane was not one of them. Send a message to all ships in the sector, she told her communications officer. All vessels are to proceed immediately to Zarian system. We're going to hit the Krex staging ground. Admiral, said her chief of staff, Colonel Minsu. 12 ships against a fleet that size? The odds are impossible. Good, So Young said with a cold smile. Humans work best when the odds are impossible. On the Indomitable, Hyunwoo's crew prepared for war. The Villani survivors watched in amazement as the humans got ready for battle. Weapons specialist Dongmin loaded ammunition that made the aliens step back in fear. The projectiles contained materials so unstable that most alien races wouldn't even mine them. The Villani had heard stories of these substances. They were supposed to be too dangerous to use as weapons. How can you handle those? Asked Villani scientist Keltar, watching Dongmin work with bare hands. These? Dongmin lifted one of the shells easily. These are standard rounds. Wait until you see what we bring out for special occasions. Pilot Sujin ran combat training in the ship's simulators. The Villani who watched the exercises became sick just from the display screens. The simulations showed fighting in gravity fields that would crush alien bones, through radiation that would kill most life forms, and in asteroid fields that spacefaring races marked as certain death zones. "No one can fly in those conditions," whispered Villani pilot Hindal. "We don't just fly in them," Sujin said, pulling 10 gravity forces in a tight turn that would have liquefied alien organs. "We live in them. Earth's weather makes these conditions look easy." Engineer Minho worked on the ship's weapon systems. The Villani couldn't understand how human technology worked. It looked crude compared to their own equipment. The humans used simple materials and basic designs, but somehow human weapons hit harder and lasted longer than anything the Villani had ever seen. "Your power systems should not work," Keltar told Minho. "You're using reactor designs that are hundreds of years old. The power output should tear your ship apart." "Probably," Minho agreed, welding 2 pieces of metal together with his bare hands in conditions that would require full environmental suits for most aliens. "But Earth ships are built tough. We have to make everything strong because our world tries to break everything we build. But the stress on the hull is about the same as a light storm back home," Minho finished. "You should see what a real Earth storm does to our cities. This is nothing." The Villani began to understand something that frightened them. These humans lived every day in conditions that would kill other races. They treated deadly radiation like warm sunshine. They worked in gravity that would crush alien bones. They breathed air so rich in oxygen it would burn alien lungs. Chief Medical Officer Da-un treated the wounded Villani using equipment that looked impossibly primitive. She used tools that seemed too simple, medicines that appeared too basic. But the alien wounds healed faster than they ever had with Villani medical technology. "How does this work?" asked Villani medic Silara, watching Da-un seal a wound with something that looked like a simple paste. "It's based on treatments we use for injuries on Earth," Da-un explained. "Our world has so many things that can hurt you, we had to get very good at fixing damage quickly. But these compounds should be toxic." "To most aliens, yes. But humans can handle much stronger medicines. We have to, because Earth diseases are much more dangerous than anything you have out here." Marine Commander Hyun-sik trained his soldiers for boarding actions. The Villani watched human warriors prepare for hand-to-hand combat in conditions that would disable most alien fighters. The humans wore armor that weighed more than most aliens could even lift. They carried weapons that would break alien arms just from the recoil. "How can you move in that armor?" Captain Veltar asked. "This?" Hyun-sik looked down at his combat gear. "This is the light version. We have heavier suits for when things get really dangerous." "Heavier? How is that possible?" "Earth has predators that can bite through metal," Hyun-sik said simply. "We learned to wear protection that could stop them. Space combat is actually easier than hunting Earth animals." As the human fleet gathered, the aliens heard stories about Earth that seemed impossible. A world where the weather could freeze you solid or burn you to ash, where animals the size of mountains lived in the oceans, where plants could eat creatures bigger than Villani, where the very ground could split open and swallow cities. "How did you survive on such a world?" Veltar asked Hyunwoo. "We didn't just survive," Hyunwoo said. "We learned to fight back. Every human child grows up knowing that the world wants to kill them. We learn to be stronger than the things that try to hurt us." "But surely your people must fear death?" Hyunwoo thought about that for a moment. "We fear failing the people who depend on us. We fear letting innocents die when we could save them. Death?" He shrugged. "Death is just another predator trying to catch us. We've been running from bigger predators our whole lives." The 12 human ships met at the edge of the Zerion system. Admiral So-young held a conference with all her captains. The Villani survivors listened to human battle plans that sounded like suicide missions. "The Kreks have 50 ships now," So-young told her captains. "Intelligence says more are coming. They're planning to use Zerion as a base to attack civilian populations." "What's the plan, Admiral?" asked Captain Ji-hoon of the destroyer Defiant. "We go in hard and fast. Hit them before they can organize a proper defense. Make them think we have more ships than we do." 12 ships against 50, said Commander Yoon-ji. "I like those odds." The other captains laughed. The Villani couldn't understand why the humans seemed happy about facing such overwhelming odds. "Sir," said Captain Taemin of the cruiser Relentless, "what if they have reinforcements?" "Then we fight reinforcements too," So Young said. "The Kreks made one mistake. They hurt innocents and asked for a fight. We're going to give them exactly what they asked for." Navigator Kyung Ho plotted courses that made the Villani sick to think about. The human fleet would approach through a field of unstable stars, using radiation and gravity that would destroy most ships. They would come out of faster than light speed inside the Kreks formation, where any mistake would mean collision and death. "This is madness," Veltar told Hyunwoo. "No one attacks like this." "No one else comes from a world like Earth," Hyunwoo replied. "We learned to take risks that other species can't imagine, because on our world playing it safe gets you killed." The human fleet prepared to jump. In the cargo bay, the Villani survivors huddled together, terrified by what they were about to witness. They had heard stories about humans, but they had thought the stories were myths, legends about impossible warriors from a death world that couldn't really exist. Now they were about to see the truth. They were about to watch 12 ships from Earth do something that no other race in the galaxy would attempt. They were about to see humans fight impossible odds because someone had asked for help. "All ships report ready," came the voice from the communication system. "Then let's go remind the Kreks why you don't mess with people under human protection," Admiral So Young said. The fleet jumped to faster than light speed, racing toward a battle that would become legend. Behind them, space was quiet and peaceful. Ahead of them, the Kreks Empire was about to learn what happened when you made humans angry. The Kreks fleet floated in perfect formation around the gas giant in the Zerion system, 50 warships, each one bigger than the largest human vessel. Their weapons could destroy cities. Their shields could stop any known attack. The Kreks had conquered 12 worlds with fleets smaller than this one. Admiral Vashek stood on the bridge of his flagship and smiled. Soon, 3 more worlds would fall to the Kreks Empire. The pathetic races of this galaxy would learn to bow before superior power. Nothing could stop them now. Space twisted, reality bent. 12 human ships dropped out of faster-than-light speed directly in the middle of the Kreks formation. "What?" Vashek screamed. "How did they get past our sensors?" His officers scrambled at their controls. The answer came quickly and made no sense. The human ships had traveled through a radiation field that should have killed every living thing aboard. They had used gravity wells that should have torn their ships apart. They had navigated through space that the Kreks computers marked as impossible to survive. 12 ships, reported the Kreks sensor officer. Small vessels. Primitive technology. Vashetka laughed. 12 ships against 50? These humans must be insane. All vessels open fire. Destroy them quickly. The Kreks opened fire with enough energy to crack moons. Laser beams and plasma bolts filled space. Any normal fleet would have been destroyed in seconds. The human ships moved like living things. They twisted and turned through the attack, dancing between energy beams that should have been impossible to avoid. Their movements were too fast, too crazy, too unpredictable. Captain Hyunwoo's voice came over the human fleet communications. "All ships, you know the drill. Hit them hard, hit them fast, and hit them where it hurts." The Indomitable fired its main guns. The projectiles were simple metal shells, crude compared to Kreks energy weapons. But they hit with the force of falling mountains. The first Kreks cruiser that took a direct hit simply exploded. "Impossible," Vashk shouted. "Our shield should stop any projectile weapon." But human projectiles weren't normal. They were made from materials so dense and moving so fast that they punched through energy shields like they weren't there. The humans had learned to build weapons on a world where everything was designed to kill everything else. Captain Ji-hoon of the Defiant found himself surrounded by 3 Kreks destroyers. Normal tactics said to retreat, find help, live to fight another day. Ji-hoon was from Earth, where normal tactics got you eaten by something bigger and meaner than you. "All crew to escape pods," he ordered. "We're going to ram the biggest ship." "Sir?" his first officer asked. "You heard me. Set the reactor to overload and aim us at their flagship. We'll take out their command ship and give the fleet an opening." The Ao Crew evacuated in 30 seconds. Ji-hoon stayed behind to guide the ship manually. The Defiant screamed through space at maximum speed, its reactor building to critical overload. The Krek's flagship tried to move, but it was too big and too slow. The explosion lit up half the system. When the light faded, the Krek's flagship was gone and Ji-hoon was floating in space in an emergency suit, somehow still alive and already shooting at enemy fighters with a hand weapon. Commander Yoon-ji led her fighter squadron through the wreckage. Where other pilots saw danger and debris, she saw opportunities. Her fighters used the exploding ships as cover, popping out to attack and disappearing again before the Kreks could target them. "This is Viper Leader," she reported to Admiral So-young. "We're using their own wreckage against them. These Kreks shields don't work so well when we attack from inside their formation." "Copy that, Viper Leader. Keep them confused." The Kreks were learning something terrible about humans. These creatures from the Death World didn't fight like civilized beings. They used tactics that no sane species would attempt. They turned their own destruction into weapons. They treated impossible odds as just another day at work. Engineer Minho's voice came over the Indomitable's internal communications. "Captain, main power is down. Reactor took a direct hit. Can you fix it?" Hyunwoo asked, even as enemy fire pounded their hull. "Not from here. I'll have to go into the reactor core and fix it manually. That's a radiation field that will kill you in minutes." "Maybe," Minho said cheerfully. "But I've worked in worse conditions during Earth storms. Give me 10 minutes. Minho suited up and walked into radiation that would have killed most aliens instantly. His suit's radiation counter screamed warnings that he ignored. He had grown up on a world where radiation storms were part of normal weather. This was just another day at the office. 8 minutes later, power came back online. Minho walked out of the reactor core, his suit smoking, but his voice calm. "Reactor's running better than new, Captain. Ready for whatever you want to throw at these ugly lizards." Pilot Soo-jin found her fighter damaged and drifting. Her weapons were gone, her engines were failing, and 3 Kreks fighters were closing in for the kill. Any sensible pilot would surrender. Soo-jin wasn't sensible. She was from Earth. She used her fighter's emergency thrusters to ram the first Krek's ship. The impact destroyed her fighter completely, but Soo-jin was already out in her spacesuit. She had grabbed a plasma cutter from her ship's toolkit and was using it to cut through the hull of the Krek's vessel. "This is Soo-jin," she reported calmly as she cut her way into an enemy ship. "My fighter is gone, but I've got a new ride. Krek's engineering is terrible. Their hull plating is thinner than Earth building materials. The Kreks inside the ship found themselves fighting a human in a spacesuit who was attacking their vessel from the inside. They had weapons designed for ship-to-ship combat, but nothing prepared them for close quarters battle with a human who treated their artificial gravity like a minor inconvenience." Admiral So-young coordinated the battle from her flagship even as enemy fire opened holes in her bridge. Emergency force fields held back the vacuum of space while she calmly gave orders. "Relentless, target their command cluster. Indomitable, keep hitting their big ships. All fighters, hit anything that moves." "Admiral," her tactical officer reported, "we're taking heavy damage. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. "Are we still fighting?" So-young asked. "Yes, ma'am. Then we're winning." The turning point came when Marine Sergeant Tae-ho led a boarding party onto a Krek's battleship. The aliens were adapted for low-gravity combat in their own ships. They wore power armor designed to help them move in the crushing gravity that humans used as normal. But when humans in their normal gear boarded the Krek ship, the aliens found themselves fighting enemies who moved like they were underwater, while the humans moved like the gravity was barely there. "They're too fast," a Krek's warrior screamed as Taeho's Marines moved through their ship like it was made of paper. "How can they move so quickly in this gravity?" "This gravity?" Taeho laughed as he tore through Krek's battle armor with tools that looked like simple maintenance equipment. "This is nothing. Our basic training is done in twice this gravity. You, lizards, need to eat more vegetables." The Kreks had never faced an enemy that treated their strongest defenses as minor obstacles. Their gravity was nothing to creatures who lived on a world with gravity that crushed most visitors. Their radiation. Weapons were weak compared to Earth's normal background radiation. Their extreme environmental suits were less protective than earthwork clothes. Within 2 hours, the impossible had happened. 12 human ships had destroyed or captured most of a 50-ship Krex fleet. The remaining Krex vessels were running, away as fast as their engines could carry them. Admiral Vashik, floating in an escape pod after his second flagship was destroyed, sent a message to Krex High Command. Do not engage the humans. They are not civilized beings. They are monsters from a hell world that should not exist. They fight like the universe itself is trying to kill them. He was closer to the truth than he knew. Admiral So-Young stood on her damaged bridge and looked at the tactical display. Red icons showed damaged human ships, too many red icons. But green icons showed captured Krex vessels and rescued civilians. Casualty report, she ordered. Heavy losses, Admiral. 4 ships destroyed, 6 heavily damaged, but we rescued all the civilians and captured 23 Krex vessels. So-Young nodded. The price was high, but they had saved innocent lives and stopped the Krex advance. For humans, that made it a good day. Send a message to Earth Command, she said. Tell them the Krex are no longer a threat in this sector, and tell them to send more ships. I have a feeling the Krex are going to want a rematch. In the cargo bay of the Indomitable, the Volani survivors stared in shock at what they had witnessed. 12 ships from a single world had done what entire galactic alliances could not do. They had made the mighty Krex Empire run away. How? Captain Veltar asked Hyunwoo. How did you do the impossible? Hyunwoo looked tired but satisfied. We didn't do anything impossible. We just did what humans do. We fought for people who needed help. But the odds don't matter when people are counting on you, Hyunwoo said simply. That's something our world taught us a long time ago. Outside, space was quiet again, but across the galaxy word was spreading. The humans had come when called, they had fought when needed, and they had won against impossible odds. The legends were beginning. The medical bay of the Indomitable was full of wounded. Human and alien crew members lay side by side on beds. The chief medical officer, Da-Un, had designed to work for both species. The smell of medical supplies and burned metal filled the air. Da-Un moved between the beds like a dancer, treating injuries that would have been fatal for most doctors to even look at. Her hands were steady as she worked on Sergeant Taeho, who had taken a direct hit from a Krex energy weapon while boarding an enemy ship. How bad is it, Doc? Taeho asked, trying to sit up. Bad enough that anyone not from Earth would be dead, Da-Un said, pushing him back down. You'll live, but you're going to have some interesting scars. Scars make the story better, Taeho grinned, then winced as Da-Un sealed a wound that went almost completely through his chest. Across the room, Volani medic Silara watched in amazement as Da-Un used techniques that should not work. The human doctor was treating radiation burns with medicines that would poison most aliens. She was healing wounds with tools that looked too simple to be effective. How is this possible? Silara asked as she watched Da-Un save the life of a human whose injuries would have killed 3 Volani. Earth medicine, Da-Un explained while working. Our world has diseases that can kill you in hours, predators with venom that stops your heart, and radiation storms that cook you from the inside. We had to learn to fix damage that most doctors never see. But the treatments you're using would kill most aliens, yes, but humans can handle much stronger medicine because we need it to survive on Earth. This soldier has injuries from 5 different types of energy weapons, but I've treated worse from Earth animal attacks. The list of human casualties grew as rescue ships arrived. Fighter pilot Bora had died when her ship exploded while saving a Volani transport. Communications officer Wu Jin was gone, killed when his station took a direct hit while he was sending evacuation orders to civilian ships. Each name on the list represented someone who had answered the call for help, knowing they might not survive. Each death was a person who had looked at impossible odds and decided that some things were worth dying for. Captain Hyunwoo walked through the medical bay, checking on his crew. His left arm was in a medical brace and burns covered half his face, but he was alive and moving. When he stopped beside Pilot Sujin's bed, she tried to salute with her good arm. Don't, Hyunwoo said gently. You've done enough saluting for one day. Sujin had somehow survived cutting her way through 3 Krek ships with nothing but hand tools and determination. Her spacesuit had 17 holes in it from enemy fire, but she had kept fighting until the battle was over. "Captain," she said weakly, "did we get them all?" "We got enough. The Kreks are running scared and the civilians are safe." "Good. That's what matters." In another bed, Engineer Minho was arguing with Da-un about when he could return to duty. His radiation exposure was off the charts and any normal person would be dead. But Minho was from Earth, where radiation storms were just another weather pattern to work through. "I feel fine, Doc," he insisted. "The reactor needs maintenance and we've got battle damage to fix. You've absorbed enough radiation to kill a small city," Da-un said firmly. "You're staying in that bed until I say otherwise. I've worked through worse radiation during Earth solar storms. This is nothing." Da-un sighed. Humans were her most difficult patients because they didn't understand the concept of too injured to work. Earth had taught them that if you could still move, you could still fight. Admiral So Young arrived on the Indomitable 12 hours after the battle. Her own flagship was badly damaged, and she was using Captain Hyunwoo's ship as a temporary command center. The entire fleet was held together with emergency repairs and determination. "Casualty report," she asked Hyunwoo as they stood in his ready room. 4 ships completely destroyed, 6 more barely holding together. We lost 43 crew members with another 100 wounded. The good news is that all the civilian survivors are safe. So Young nodded grimly. The numbers were bad, but they could have been much worse. Any other fleet facing those odds would have been completely destroyed. "What about the Krek's fleet?" "Destroyed or scattered. We captured 23 ships intact, sank 18, and the rest ran away. Intelligence thinks they're heading back to Krek space to report what happened." "Good. Let them report. Let the whole Krek's empire know what happens when they attack innocents under human protection." Outside the ship, rescue vessels worked to save the survivors. Human engineering teams helped repair alien ships using techniques that seemed impossible. They worked in conditions that would kill most aliens, using materials that other species considered too dangerous to handle. Captain Veltar watched from the observation deck as human crew members worked in space without full environmental suits. They moved through radiation fields that would sterilize most life forms, treating the deadly environment like a minor inconvenience. "Your people are incredible," he told Hyunwoo. "We've never seen anything like this." "We're just doing our job," Hyunwoo replied, "helping people who need help. But at such a cost, so many of your crew died for strangers." Hyunwoo was quiet for a moment, watching his people work. "On Earth, we learned early that survival means helping each other. The world tries to kill everyone, so everyone has to help everyone else stay alive. We don't think of you as strangers. We think of you as neighbors who needed help." News of the battle spread through the galaxy faster than light. Every species that had ever been threatened by the Krek's empire heard the same impossible story. 12 ships from a single world had defeated a fleet that had conquered star systems. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered to discuss what the human victory meant. Some were amazed, some were frightened. All of them wanted to know more about these Deathworlders who fought like the universe was trying to kill them. "The humans have done something unprecedented," announced Council Speaker Yithran. "They have made the Krek's empire retreat. This changes everything." "How?" asked the representative from the Moth Consortium. "They are just one species from one world. One world that apparently produces warriors unlike anything we have ever seen," Yithran replied. "We need to understand what makes them so effective." The answer came from the rescued Villani survivors. Their reports painted a picture of beings so adapted to danger that they treated deadly combat as normal work. Creatures who lived in conditions that would kill most life forms and thought those conditions were comfortable. "They eat food that would poison us," reported Captain Veltar to the council. "They breathe air that would burn our lungs. They work in gravity that would crush our bones. Their entire species has been shaped by a world that tries to destroy everything on it. And now they use that experience to help others," added Villani scientist Keltar. "They don't fight for conquest or resources. They fight because someone asked for help." 3 days after the battle, Earth Command sent reinforcements. Admiral So Young met with the new fleet commanders to plan their next moves. The Krex Empire would not give up easily, and there were other threats in the galaxy that needed attention. "What's our status?" asked Admiral Park, the newly arrived fleet commander. "We've established human presence in 3 systems, the Villani. Republic has formally requested Earth protection, and we're getting distress calls from a dozen other worlds that want help against various threats. Can we handle that many requests?" So Young smiled the same cold smile she had worn before the battle. "We're humans. We'll find a way." In the Indomitable's cargo bay, the Villani survivors prepared to transfer to ships that would take them home. They had seen something that would change their lives forever. They had watched legends being born in fire and sacrifice. Captain Veltar shook hands with Hyunwoo one final time. "Thank you," he said simply. "For everything." "Thank you for asking." "For help," Hyunwoo replied. "That's all we needed to hear." As the alien ships departed, carrying news of human courage to every corner of the galaxy, the human fleet began repairs for the next battle. Because there would be a next battle. There were always people who needed help, and humans had decided. That was reason enough to fight impossible odds. The price of legend was high. But for humans, it was a price worth paying. 1 year later, the Krex Empire was gone. Admiral So Young stood on the bridge of her flagship Vengeance and watched the last Krex stronghold surrender. The fortress that had once controlled 5 star systems now sent signals of defeat. White flags flew from ships that had terrorized the galaxy for decades. "All Krex vessels are standing down," reported her communications officer. "They're requesting terms for surrender." "Terms are simple," So Young said. "Free all slaves, return all stolen property, leave occupied worlds immediately. Any ship that breaks these terms gets turned into scrap metal." The Krex had learned what the rest of the galaxy was beginning to understand. When humans said something, they meant it. When they made threats, they followed through. When they promised protection, they delivered it with interest. Captain Hyunwoo, now commanding a mixed fleet of human and alien ships, received the surrender of the last Krex admiral. The alien looked broken and defeated. Nothing like the proud conqueror he had been a year ago. "How?" the Krex admiral asked. "How did one species destroy an empire that ruled for centuries?" "We didn't destroy you," Hyunwoo said calmly. "You destroyed yourselves when you decided to hurt innocent people. We just helped the process along." Across the galaxy, liberation fleets led by human officers freed world after world. The pattern was always the same. Human ships would arrive first, fighting through impossible odds to establish a safe zone. Then would come the engineers, fixing infrastructure that had been destroyed by war. Finally came the teachers, showing freed populations how to defend themselves. Engineer Minho had become something of a legend himself. His designs for defensive systems were being copied by dozens of species. The technology wasn't advanced by galactic standards, but it worked in conditions that would destroy more sophisticated equipment. "How does this shield generator function? In such extreme radiation?" asked Zenthari engineer Kilmon as they worked together on an orbital defense platform. "Simple," Minho explained while welding components together in radiation that should have killed him. "Earth equipment has to work during radiation storms, so we build everything to handle much worse conditions than this. These shields could function inside a star if they had to." "Inside a star?" "Well, maybe not inside, but definitely next to one. We had to put research stations near Earth's sun during solar storm season. This is much easier." Pilot Sujin led the first mixed-species fighter squadron in galactic history. Human pilots flew alongside Villani, Zenthari, and even former Krex pilots who had defected to the human cause. The combination of human aggression and alien precision created a fighting force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. "Remember," Sujin told her mixed squadron before a training exercise, "humans go in fast and hard. Aliens think before acting. Together we're unstoppable. Let's show them what teamwork looks like." The exercise results amazed military observers. The mixed squadron performed maneuvers that were impossible for any single species. Humans provided the courage to attempt impossible tactics, while aliens provided the precision to make those tactics work. Chief Medical Officer Da Yun had established hospitals on 15 worlds. Her techniques for treating trauma injuries were being taught to medical students across the galaxy. The fact that human medicine worked on most alien species was still a mystery that scientists were trying to understand. "Your treatments should not work on our physiology," said Moth medical researcher Vixara, as they worked together in a trauma center on a recently liberated world. "Maybe not," Da-Un said while treating a patient with injuries from 3 different types of energy weapons. "But they do work. Earth taught us that when someone is dying, you try everything until something helps. Theory is nice, but saving lives is better." The Galactic Council voted unanimously to create the Human Protection Accord. Any world that signed the agreement would receive Earth's guarantee of protection against aggression. Within 6 months, over 200 worlds had signed. Admiral So Young addressed the council from the podium where galactic leaders had once begged for help against threats they couldn't handle alone. "The Human Protection Accord is simple," she told the assembled representatives. "If you ask for help, we come. If you're attacked, we respond. If you're threatened, we stand with you. All we ask in return is that you help each other the same way." "And if we cannot provide military assistance?" asked the representative from the peaceful Volani Republic. "Then provide what you can. Medical supplies, food, shelter for refugees, technical expertise. Everyone has something to offer. Everyone can help somehow." The agreement created something unprecedented in galactic history, an alliance based not on mutual benefit or shared resources, but on the simple idea that people should help each other when help was needed. Marine Commander Hyun Sik had established training centers on 12 worlds. Former soldiers from dozens of species learned human military tactics and philosophy. The training was brutal by galactic standards, but graduates could fight enemies that had previously been unstoppable. "Why do you teach us to fight in such extreme conditions?" asked former Krek soldier Vashtur, who had joined the human military after his empire collapsed. "Because when you're protecting innocent people, you don't get to choose the conditions," Hyun Sik explained as he led the mixed group through a training exercise in crushing gravity and toxic atmosphere. "The enemy picks the time and place. You have to be ready for anything. But surely there are limits. The only limit is what you're willing to endure to save someone else. If you're not willing to risk everything, you shouldn't be in the protection business." Captain Veltar had become the Volani representative to Earth. His people had built a monument on their homeworld to commemorate the humans who had died saving them. The inscription was simple but powerful. "They came when called, fought when needed, and died so others could live." "Why did your people do it?" he asked Hyunwoo during a diplomatic visit to Earth. "Why risk everything for strangers?" They stood in a park in Seoul, watching human children play games that would be considered extreme sports by most alien species. The children laughed as they climbed structures that would terrify adult aliens, completely unaware that they were performing feats that impressed galactic visitors. "Look at them," Hyunwoo said, watching a group of 10-year-olds play a game that involved jumping between platforms 3 meters apart. "Every one of those children will grow up knowing that the world is dangerous. They'll learn that survival means helping others survive. They'll understand that strength means protecting the weak. But why extend that protection to aliens? Because once you understand that everyone needs help sometimes, it doesn't matter what species they are. Need is need. Suffering is suffering. And if you can help, you help." The transformation of galactic civilization was remarkably fast. Trade routes that had been disrupted by piracy for decades became safe as human patrol fleets eliminated threats. Worlds that had lived in fear of conquest began developing their own cultures again. Species that had been enemies for centuries started working together under human protection. Engineer Min Ho found himself teaching alien engineers how to build equipment that could function in hostile environments. The lessons were simple but revolutionary. "Most alien technology is designed for perfect conditions," he explained to a class of students from 20 different species. "But perfect conditions don't exist in the real universe. Earth taught us to build things that work when everything goes wrong." "How do you test equipment for such extreme conditions?" asked a Zenthari student. "We test it on Earth," Minho grinned. "If it works during an Earth storm season, it'll work anywhere in the galaxy. Medical Officer Dayun had developed treatment protocols that saved lives across species barriers. Her techniques were being taught in medical schools on hundreds of worlds. The secret isn't the medicine, she told a gathering of galactic medical professionals. The secret is not giving up. Earth taught us that there's always one more thing to try, one more treatment to attempt. You keep fighting for the patient until fighting is impossible. But surely there are cases where treatment is hopeless. Maybe, but I haven't found one yet. Admiral So Young received reports from across the galaxy. Piracy was down 90%. Aggressive wars had virtually stopped. Worlds that had been isolated by fear were opening trade relationships. The galaxy was becoming a safer place. Status report, she asked her chief of staff. All sectors report normal patrol activities. No major threats detected. Crime is at historic lows. The Krek's successor states are all cooperating with rehabilitation programs. Any requests for assistance? 17 this week. Mostly requests for technical assistance or medical help. Nothing requiring military intervention. So, Young smiled. It was the kind of problem she liked having. Captain Hyunwoo stood once again on the observation deck of the Indomitable, but now he was joined by officers from 12 different species. His ship had become a symbol of cooperation, crewed by beings who had learned to work together despite their differences. Captain, said his Villani science officer Keltar, we're receiving a distress signal from the Outer Rim. Pirates attacking. A refugee convoy. How far? 18 hours at maximum speed. Hyunwoo looked around at his mixed crew.